Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Bob, for that. I believe the topic of this discussion is: does Israel have the right to defend itself? And the answer is absolutely not. And the reason why is because Israel is a rat state, a racist, apartheid, terrorist state, which has imprisoned 2.4 million people in a concentration camp called Gaza. Says who? Says Amnesty International. Says who? Says Human Rights Watch, as well as multiple human rights organizations have confirmed this. So for tonight's debate, I have come armed to the teeth with authoritative references. And I'm going to give you the Google keyword search on that, Human Rights Watch, Gaza, Israel, open-air prison. So you can verify the facts right here, right now. Because, see, the problem here, the core issue is a rewrite of world history. Those people who support history, who support Israel, they want to rewrite world history and twist it to trick you basically into supporting Israel. In terms of all of these Quran verses which Bob has cited, ignore them. Why? Because Israel is actually the very country he's defending. Israel has already defended that. And they on October 7th, they said Islam doesn't teach to kill innocent people. And they actually do accept Islam as a religion of peace. Let me give you the Google keyword search on that. What motivates terrorists? What you will not find is all of Bob's presentation. It has nothing to do with the Quran. Number one hit on that or point is because of the injustices. The injustices done to these to the people, and that's why they joined these terrorist organizations. So we could just ignore all the references to Islam, as the research has already debunked all of that. So Israel is a rat state which has imprisoned 2.4 million people. Amnesty International, as well as others, have confirmed that. But in addition to that, Israel is also a terrorist state. So you might say, okay, well, where's your evidence on that? Who said it's a terrorist state? Now prepare for the shock. I said, prepare for the shock. I'm quoting the United States Department of Justice. That's who. The Google keyword search on that is Zionist Terrorism, Department of Justice. Let's pull up the article. If you got your phone, you can read along with me. And I'm quoting from the government website: Jewish terrorism against the British and the Arabs did contribute heavily to the removal of the British from Palestine, the abandonment of League and Goliath, and now get this, and the creation of the Jewish state of Israel. What did it? Jewish terrorism against the British and Arabs did what? I'm repeating. It contributed to the creation of the state of Israel. Truck bomb, car bomb. As soon as these Jewish invading settlers started coming into Palestine, they triggered a relentless campaign of terrorist attacks, and a 10-year campaign of terrorism against the Arabs and the British, so much to the point that the British couldn't continue it anymore, and that's how we got Israel. Why? Because we just couldn't stop the Jewish terrorist violence. Says who? Department of Justice. Okay, so this is a terrorist state, which and that is why when you look, you see they have in Gaza today, they have killed over 5,000 innocent people in 2 weeks. Why? Well, didn't the Department of Justice tell you they're a terrorist state? And now let's compare that. In Afghanistan, they killed 4,000 people, innocent people died in 4 years, and that was considered a terrible tragedy. Then what do you have to say about 5,000 people killed in 2 weeks? That's not collateral damage. That's genocide. And so this is, and not only that, but no food, no water, no electricity. What else do you expect from a terrorist state, which the Department of Justice warned us about? This is and this is not terrorism. And then you remember on October 7th, Netanyahu told a population of 2.4 million people, march, get out of your homes and go. Everyone's asking, where are these people going to go? The media's like, this is a prison. There is no place for you to go. Now where did we find that from? Isn't that what Joseph Stalin did? Yeah. You see, if you look at the actions of Israel, you will find the worst monsters in human history committing these type of horrific atrocities. So no need to give you a reference on that. We've all seen it. They're asking people to march to nowhere. So this is the reason why Israel has no right to defend itself. Because if you say this terrorist organization has a right to defend itself, then give the same right to Hamas. Give the same right to ISIS. They are also terrorist organizations. Okay, so and actually, ISIS and Hamas, they're not as bad as Israel. Says who? Says Holocaust survivor Dr. Gabi Mate. He says if you look at the just sheer numbers of deaths, ISIS nowhere compares to Israel. And so that's the first reason, because Israel is a rat state. And it is not Hamas which is the cause of the problem, it's Israel. What happened on October 6th was simply a prison break. People broke out of the prison and they killed some of the prison guards and murdered their families. But who is at root cause is the people who imprisoned 2.4 million indigenous people in this concentration camp. They're the ones who are the source of this problem. So, and my final reason why there is no right to defend itself is because there are peaceful solutions out there. Did you know that? Did your media tell you that there are peaceful solutions out there that can resolve this and can destroy Hamas? It can, and it works 100% of the time. In fact, I will quote for you Dr. Martin Luther King's daughter. She gave the best refutation to these Israel supporters. She quoted her father. She says, she said, the power without love is reckless and abusive. She says, where is the love towards these people? Where is the love towards the Palestinian people? And this is a very important point. And I will quote, and these are not just, reassuring words. I'm going to leave you with a quote from from General Petraeus. He said, listen, it's not enough just to fight and kill people. You have to offer the population some hope for a better future. That's how you defeat terrorist organizations, not by just sheer bombing them. You see, I have a joke which I tell people, but there's a lot of truth in that. People who live in $500,000 houses, have a BMW in the garage, go to vacation every year to Europe, they don't join Hamas, okay? It's people who have no hope, no hope for the future. These are the people who join Hamas. Now, I'm not saying you have to give all that to them, but what I'm saying is once you give them opportunity, these people will leave Hamas, and they will, and because why join Hamas? So that's how you basically defeat these terrorist organizations, as General Petraeus says. Give them hope, break down that prison walls, let them come into Israel, feed, clothe them, give them jobs. And that's how you beat these terrorist organizations. So, what I would like to hear from Bob, I would like to hear him defend that 5,000 dead in 2 weeks. I'd like to hear him, as a Christian, defend that number and say, oh, this is just collateral damage. So I guess my time is up, and I guess we're going to have a discussion here.
Okay, well, I would be happy to give a defense here. First of all, the Gaza Health Ministry, which is run by Hamas, is the primary news source for most of the news you're reading. And I simply do not take them seriously. I simply do not believe the things that they say. They're giving faulty information. But I hope you all heard my opponent clearly, because he agreed with Hamas. First words out of his mouth, Israel does not have a right to exist. Now, is there collateral damage in any war? There will be collateral damage, but Israel sent out leaflets, sent out text messages, asked Egypt to open up a road and let people from Gaza out. Hamas wouldn't let them do it. Hamas builds their military installations near hospitals, near schools, because their whole publicity program is to create as much collateral damage as possible to make Israel look like the aggressor. Hamas does not recognize Israel's right to exist, and Israel abandoned Hamas in 2005 because they asked for the autonomy. How was it a prison and a concentration camp when they gave them millions of dollars that they spent on terrorism instead of food and greenhouses?
Okay. Well, hey, just if I could throw this, we could have 2 minutes each, uninterrupted, because we might.
Well, we agreed to a free-flowing conversation, but Mike's here to make sure it doesn't get out of hand.
But you can go ahead and respond. You've got at least equal time to respond. Go ahead and respond to Bob right now.
Bring up one issue at a time, and then we can talk about that.
Well, the facts are so overwhelming; it's hard not to use them, my friend.
One issue at a time. Now, that 5,000 dead in 2 weeks. That number is defended by UNICEF. Let me give you the Google keyword search. UNICEF defends accuracy of Gaza death tolls as horror unfolds, and it is also defended by the government itself. Kirby also said, well, we don't trust Hamas, but we do accept that the number of innocent people killed is well into the thousands.
But they are getting that from Hamas.
No, that's the government I'm quoting for you. I'm quoting UNICEF.
You can be quoting UNICEF, but UNICEF is getting their information from Hamas. That's the source of the information.
No. Okay, the United States government is not getting the source from Hamas. Neither is UNICEF. So you have been debunked. Right?
You seem to feel that if the more organizations you list,
no water, no electricity.
And whose fault is that? Whose fault is that? Hamas. Now you say Israel. I'd like to ask you a question. You say Israel is just as bad as Hamas. When's the last time Israel went in and raped women and put it over Facebook? When's the last time Israel went in and decapitated babies' heads?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So. I noticed that I did quote references, and like I said in the beginning, I'm going to quote authoritative references to debunk this nonsense. Now, when America, I'm repeating for you, America is not getting their information from Hamas. They say we are not getting our information from Hamas. We don't trust them, but we do accept that the death toll is well into the thousands.
But they're accepting that from news sources which are getting their information from Hamas. Okay. Look, we're just going to have to leave it up to our audience. But you know what? You quoted Martin Luther King's daughter. Did you know that Martin Luther King himself said that those who do not accept Zionism are anti-Semites?
Okay,
so if you want to talk about, by the way, just because you list a bunch of organizations, are you actually making the claim that what the majority believe is true? Because if you are, you just justified slavery. There was a time in the world where the majority of the people in the world believed in slavery. So we don't determine truth by the majority. We determine truth by the facts. And I'm not hearing facts from you. I'm just hearing, well, this organization says it, that organization says it.
Okay.
All that's doing is listing a bunch of organizations and going to the look at the majority argument. Very weak argument.
Okay, so let me cite my source. This is Fox News. White House battles reporters rejecting Hamas Gaza death toll. Just put that in your Google keyword search. And when he said we reject Hamas's death toll, but we do not dispute the fact that well into the thousands of innocent people have been killed. So that's the article.
As they heard from Gaza Health Ministry as their source.
Okay, I think you've been refuted on that. I've cited I cited UNICEF and I've cited this source. So
keep on believing that. Keep on telling yourself, Nadir. Sooner or later, you'll start to believe it.
No water. Hold on. Now I'll address your other point. No food, no water.
Because of Hamas. Israel had nothing to do with that. It was because of Hamas.
Please allow me to talk. You didn't let me finish. Okay.
Go ahead. Finish.
So, Israel is responsible for its own actions, okay? That's not Hamas's fault to starve an entire population of people. And so that argument has been refuted right there. So this all goes back to the fact that Israel is a rat state, a racist, apartheid, terrorist state, as stated by the United States Department of Justice, which you were not able to refute either. So what else do you expect from a rat state? So now you did say that, well, I don't accept that Gaza is a prison. I've already cited humanrightswatch.org, Amnesty International, and there's several.
Okay, I have a question for you. Did the people of Gaza ask Israel to withdraw and give them autonomy? And did not Israel do that back in 2005?
What Israel did, they imprisoned them. They built a huge fence around them
so that they couldn't cross the border and commit more terror. The first day they got their autonomy, they started firing rockets into Israel. What's Israel supposed to do?
Okay. Yeah, I already told you. This is a very easy solution. So let me now answer your question. First of all, let's say the Gazan people are doing terrorism, things like that. That is no justification to imprison an entire population of 2.4
It's a justification to not allow them to do more terror.
Honestly, I've had discussions with neo-Nazis on this, and to be very honest with you, the neo-Nazis are a lot more
Oh, so now on your list of majority rules, you're even listing the Nazis. Good one, my friend. Let me ask you a question, Nadir. If somebody broke into your house and murdered some of your loved ones and then went away and promised to come back and murder more of your loved ones, you wouldn't call the police to go after them?
Absolutely, I would. But that's
well, then why can't Israel do the same thing?
Because Israel...
What did thugs breaking into a house ever do that these people didn't do to the Israelis on October the 7th?
Okay, let's
You're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, and it's just not. You're taking this horrific narrative, and you're trying to say, well, Bob, Israel deserved it.
Allow me to talk.
Yeah, let's hear a bit from Nadir here.
Yeah. Okay. So that is our, the analogy you gave actually doesn't work. The analogy which I gave you is a much better analogy that that Israel imprisoned 2.4 million people in a concentration camp, and what happened was a prison break. They killed some of the prison guards and murdered some of their families. Now, of course, that's not right, but the core problem here is with Israel for doing that horrific atrocity to these people. Now, you ask, well, what should Israel do? Well, I've already given what Dr. Martin Luther King's daughter said was right, and what General Petraeus said was right. You show mercy and compassion to these people. People only join terrorist organizations when they are oppressed and persecuted, when there is no hope.
Okay, let me respond. Okay. I would say that after their daughters were raped and babies' heads were cut off and they came to eliminate Hamas, but they still sent out text messages and leaflets warning the average populace to get out of the way, I would say that's a lot of mercy. I have interviewed Israeli soldiers myself. I know their protocol. They do not try to do collateral damage. Hamas, on the other hand, lives for collateral damage. And why is Hamas setting up its military installation in hospitals if they don't want Israel to do that? Why did Hamas refuse to let the citizens of Gaza leave originally? Because they wanted that to happen, because they know they can't win a military war against Israel, so they're fighting a publicity war instead. That's why.
Okay. So you asked me three questions there, so let me answer the first one. This nonsense about Israel telling 2.4 million people to get out of the way, that's what Joseph Stalin did. Now, it was like 100 or 200, I can understand. But to tell an entire population of people in a prison to march to nowhere, that is a war crime.
Well, you haven't answered my question. What were they? How else were they going to go in and root out the terrorists without?
I will
and why would they not? Why? If they were not concerned about the population, why would they be asking the population to get out of the way?
Allow me to finish your second. I'm going to address one issue at a time. You said that you've actually talked to the IDF and you've confirmed.
I interviewed an Israeli soldier one time. Yes, I did.
Allow me to. Okay, that's not how research is conducted. Okay, you need to.
Well, it's not conducted by getting your facts from Gaza Health Ministry either.
Okay. So this all goes back to that number. 5,000 dead in 2 weeks. That's not collateral damage. That's genocide.
And it is simply not the truth.
Okay. Well, I've already cited my source. UNICEF has backed that number, so we're not going to go back to that issue. But there is no evidence for what you're talking about, and I've never seen any evidence. I mean, of course, it is trumpeted that Israel only attacks, make sure they're not attacking civilians, but it's a bunch of baloney.
Wait a minute. Are you saying there's no evidence for those attacks from Hamas on October the 7th?
I'm saying Israel is a worse terrorist organization.
Tell me right now, give me an example of something Israel did that was worse than what happened on October 7th. This ought to be really good.
Oh, absolutely. No food, no water, no electricity.
That was Hamas that was responsible for that. Okay. Just what part of that are you not understanding, my friend?
Israel is responsible for its own actions, not Hamas. Okay?
Israel's warning the people to leave, and Hamas is keeping them prisoners. Now, who's making the concentration camp? It's Hamas that kept them there as prisoners.
I'll tell you, I'll give you an example of my neo-Nazi friend. And, I talked about this.
I don't have any neo-Nazi friends. Where are you meeting all these neo-Nazis, Nadir?
Well, I have friends in high places and low places. And listen to what he said.
Low so far.
I was asking him, he would say, oh, yeah, when Hamas did those attacks, I was cheering them on. I said, so you know what Israel is doing right now in Gaza? You bet you'd love that as those are Jews over there. He said, no, I wouldn't. He says, God, I don't got the stomach for that. Think about that. The slow, torturous genocide taking place in Gaza. My Nazi friend said, I don't got the stomach for that.
Nadir, hearing about your Nazi friend who doesn't have the stomach for genocide just moves me close to tears, in as much as the Nazis have done genocide already.
Yeah, look at the point. So his very interesting point, the gas chambers, according to him, was a humane way to kill people. But what's happening in Gaza is a slow, torturous death of suffocating 2.4 million people with no food, no water, no electricity.
But that's not coming from Israel. That's coming from Hamas. And no matter how many times you slice it, it's still baloney.
Okay. Okay, so let's get back to what General Petraeus was saying, because there is no need for war to begin with. Because as General Petraeus stated, he said you got to offer the population something of hope for a better future. And he was very successful in Afghanistan in defusing many of these terrorist organizations.
Yeah, well, I'd like to hear Petraeus say that again after someone breaks into his home and murders his wife and then rapes her first and puts it out over the Facebook. Petraeus might just have a different view on it after that, huh?
Yeah, he's an expert on terrorism, by the way.
See, you're listing all these people, and you're trying to do this majority opinion equals morality.
Yeah.
History has shown us that majority opinion is often in the wrong. I go back again and quote the time when most people in the world accepted slavery. But you and I know that slavery is wrong, and the majority believing in it at one time didn't make a difference. So the majority people taking Hamas's side, that really doesn't make any difference. It's not going to cut it with me. And that's not the same as citing a fact. All you're doing is saying, well, this person says it, that person says it. You're giving me a list of people who agree with you. Fine. There's a lot of people who agree with you. And all that means is there's a lot of people who agree with you. Not hearing any actual facts, my friend.
I'm not citing who's the most popular opinion. I'm citing expert opinion. That's what I made sure to do coming into this debate. And so what I also noticed tonight, you really weren't able to defend the fact that Israel is a rat state. It's a terrorist state which was founded upon Jewish terrorism.
Well, I hear you saying that. I have not heard you back that up. Just because you use a lot of ad hominems, you've done enough debates to know what an ad hominem is and what a non sequitur is, and that's all you're doing, my friend. It's smoke and mirrors, and we're not buying it. We're not buying it. Go sell this somewhere else.
Pull up a browser, a web browser, and just type Department of Justice Zionist terrorism, and I'm going to quote for you again. Jewish terrorism against the British and the Arabs did contribute heavily to the removal of the British from Palestine and the abandonment of the League of Nations mandate and the creation of the Jewish state.
There was an uprising amongst Jews against the British who had invited the Jews there and then had gone back on their promise. But just because someone chooses to call that terrorism doesn't mean that that's what it is. And if you have a problem with terrorism, would you like to, in front of our audience right now, renounce what Hamas did on October the 7th? Would you like to do that? Do you categorically renounce what Hamas did on October the 7th?
I'd love to answer that question, but before I go there, I want to explain to you that when we call terrorism, I mean, this is the United States Department of Justice, but not only them, but let me give you another reference, history.com. They have also talked about Jewish terrorism. This is my point, Bob. It is a rewrite of world history of what you believe in. I'm going to quote for you history.com. The article I'm reading from is State of Israel proclaimed. And here they say that it was Jewish terrorism. That is a statement.
For every website you find on the internet saying one thing, you can find one that says something else. And by the way, even if the Department of Justice was saying these things, there's a lot of problems with the Department of Justice right now.
Okay, well, let me address your next point, your last point, your first point. Well, I'll find a website.
And this is the most recent DOJ site established by the Biden administration. Anyway, if you went back to previous DOJ websites during the Trump era or going back into the 40s and 50s, you wouldn't be seeing that. So this is a lot of smoke and mirrors.
So I came tonight not quoting Sword of the Lord or aljihadalakbar.com.
You did not hear me quote from Sword of the Lord once. As a matter of fact, I have renounced Sword of the Lord publicly, so you really ought to get your facts straight before you continue with these ad hominem arguments.
No, I'm not accusing you.
I'm very aware of the magazine called Sword of the Lord, and it's a very dumb fundamentalist magazine. Not that all fundamentalists are dumb, but this one is, and I've renounced it. So you're just slinging out everything you possibly can here, hoping that something will stick. So far, nothing has stuck, though, which is good.
Okay, that's fine. Look, Bob, I'm making sure that when you quote, my point here is this, when you quote authoritative historians, scholars, it's all going to read the same, okay? Nobody is going to deny the facts which I'm giving you. Now, I'm going to quote to you one last reference, and then I'll answer the question about Hamas. This is from the United Nations investigation on Israel back in 2008 on Gaza, and I'm quoting from that report. The report, for those who wants to, is the question of Palestine. It's called the Goldstone Report, and listen to what they say. The Israeli offensive has been deliberate assault meant to punish, humiliate, and terrorize the civilian population.